I'm starting off with half a cup or 125 grams of soft butter. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cream the butter and 1/4 cup of icing sugar or powdered sugar in my bowl. At this stage, you will want your oven turned on to 160 degrees Celsius. We're going to bake these a little bit lower because we don't want them to get a lot of colour. We just want them to cook through and be very light and pale in colour. And to line a baking sheet, I've got 2 lined baking sheets with, so I've lined them both with parchment paper. Alright, so my butter and icing sugar are nicely creamed. Now I'm going to start adding in my dry ingredients. I've just used a spatula to cream this together. If you wanted to use hand beaters, you can use that, but I figured I'm not making a very big batch, and it's just as easy to make my hand than to have to clean up hand beaters as well. So the next thing that I'm going to add is I'm going to add 1/2 cup of custard powder and 1 cup of self-raising flour. If you don't have self-raising flour on hand, you can always make it up with all-purpose flour and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So now all you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to stir this, and you'll want to stir it gently to begin with because you don't want a puff of flour and custard powder in the air. But I'm just going to keep stirring this until it all comes together, and you're wanting to look for a soft dough. It may look very dry to begin with, but don't be tempted to go and add any liquid to this. It will come together in the end. You just have to be a little bit patient. If you want to, you can do what I'm about to do and actually use your hands to get this all mixed together. With clean and dry hands, you just want to start mixing this together, and eventually you'll get to a soft dough. Okay, so once you've given it a really, really good mix, you will end up with what is a stiff biscuit dough. I think before I said soft dough, I was meant to say stiff. So I'm going to roll each of my biscuits into the size of about 1/2 tablespoon, and that'll give us a good size end biscuit. And at this stage, you just want to roll them into balls and put them on a baking tray. Once you've got all of your biscuits rolled out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten them with a fork. So I've just dipped my fork into a little bit of flour so that it doesn't stick, and you're just going to go to the top of the biscuit and just press it down. Now don't worry if it cracks. That's just the way that it is. When you see that the fork starts sticking, dip it back into your flour. These will spread a little bit. I don't expect them to spread too much. I'm going to put these in the oven and I'm going to cook them. I'm going to bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes. I want them to be a slightly golden brown on the bottom, but I don't want them to color up on the top. So I'm going to keep an eye on them throughout the baking to make sure that the oven is not coloring the tops of them. So I'm going to put them into my 160 degree Celsius preheated oven. So I've preheated it for about 10-15 minutes. And once these are baked, I will bring you back and show you what they look like. The last thing that we need to do before we go ahead and assemble our melting moments is to make our filling. So here I've got 1 cup of icing sugar, I've got 1 tablespoon of butter, and I'm about to put in about a teaspoon of vanilla essence. And you can use real or imitation, depending on what you've got on hand. I'm just going to mix everything with a spoon right into this bowl. Again, you don't want to mix too vigorously, otherwise you'll end up with a cloud of icing sugar all over your kitchen. You just want to soften it up by pressing the icing sugar into the butter, and eventually it will all come together. If you need to, you may also need to add a few drops of water or milk into here if it looks like it's just a bit too dry, but hopefully this will all come together. So we've got all of our biscuits baked and thoroughly cooled. You don't want these to be warm at all before when you sandwich them together with some buttercream icing. You'll notice that each of our biscuits has no color on the top of it, but it is very lightly brown on the bottom, and that's exactly the way we want them. They're completely cooked through. Now what we've got here is I've got my buttercream icing that I made with the butter and the icing sugar and vanilla essence. And what I've done is I also had to add about 3 teaspoons of water to make it a nice spreading consistency. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to sandwich my biscuits. So I'm going to take a little bit of buttercream and I'm going to spread it on the back of one of my biscuits, just like that. And then I'm going to find a biscuit that is roughly about around the same shape or the same size, and I'm just going to press the two together like that. And we have made our very first delicious melting moment. So I'm going to continue like that and sandwich all of my biscuits together, and then we can bite into one and see what they taste like. And here we are, a beautiful plate of melting moments that are absolutely delicious. I'm going to pick one up so that you can see exactly what they look like. These took a little under an hour to make. They are delicious. They are so easy and so cheap to make that you will never buy them from the store again. So I hope you make this, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you next time on Do It Frugal.